Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Kolb, and I am your host today for today's Credit Safe webinar. So, what are we talking about today? Today, we're going to be talking about how automation will work through your decisioning for credit and financial setups, and how that can help you and what that can do specifically, and how that can help your company grow. So, I'm pleased to welcome back today Leighton Weston. He's been with us before on the webinar. He's been with Credit Safe since 2008. He studied at Cross Keys College, studying economics, accountancy, mathematics, and IT. He's worked in sales and marketing departments for Credit Safe in the UK, and then has been brought over to help with the US. In 2013, he was brought over to do that. He's been doing this a long time, works with most of our automation groups, companies that are looking for more sophisticated solutions on how to integrate the data that we have and the solutions that we have and automate their decision-making and everything like that. So Leighton does that all the time. On the kind of personal side, loves being on Pinterest all the time. He, not just doing, well, it might be shoes and everything like that, but he's doing a whole bunch of stuff on there. Loves Netflix and golf as well. So a lot of different interests. I've gotten the chance to hang out with Leighton quite a few times and have dinner, and we always have a great time just chatting and getting to know each other a bit better. But Leighton, you've been on here before, so you kind of know how this works. Welcome, and looking forward to chatting about automation here today. So I think that'll be good. But before we get rolling into this, there's something I'd like to know from you, the audience. Like I said, you'll be able to answer our questions. So down in that Q&A little spot down at the bottom, answer this question for me if you would, folks. How much of your credit process in your company is automated currently? How much of it is your credit app automated? Is it already online? Is it going to auto populate for you? Is your credit policy automated so that the decisioning trees are already built and things like that? Do you have full automation, or are we at zero? Everything is manual, everything is done, just one way. It just kind of helps us know who's in the room, how it works and everything. So I see some answers already coming in. Just go ahead and drop that in there. Give us an idea of kind of where your company's at on that kind of continuum of how automated your credit policy and your financial policies are right now. So Leighton, I see you've got your presentation up. So let's start rolling through this, man. Let's see what's going on.
Perfect. And Nathan, thank you for the introduction. Always enjoy going out. For those of you that know me, definitely enjoy a little party. But today, I would love to go through talking about some of the subjects surrounding automating decisions, whether that be for financial growth or another option that I'm going to share with you a little later on today. Going to try and make this as painless as possible. It's not going to be one of those ones where I read off of every single slide and bore everyone to death. So I'm just going to try and make this a little bit interactive, go through it quickly, go through it painlessly, and hopefully get some interaction with everybody at the end. What I'm going to go through today, I'm going to do a recap of my last session, just talk about identifying automation opportunities. If you do get a chance and you want to, and you didn't see that last webinar, please just go onto Credit Safe webinars page and take a little browse. Then I just want to kick straight off with a case study, very interesting one that I did recently, where it was a different kind of use case that I wanted to solve and the client wanted solved, and we managed to do it quickly, effectively, and painlessly. Then I want to go back to basics a little bit, talk about that credit and sales policy, hopefully give you some inspiration of things you might want to add, things you might want to take out, just to make that process simpler and more effective. Talk about some of the data elements then that we can add into that process. Now, there's some very, very simple things that we can do to make your life a lot easier. Then the next case study was very outside the box. When I first listened to this specific client, I was very intrigued to find out exactly how this would work and exactly how we could mirror that for some of our other clients. So I think I can hopefully get some inspiration to people to consider doing this in the future. Then towards the end, I want to talk about current states versus desired states. This is one of those boring slides, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm just going to pick a couple of items from that slide, discuss them a little bit, and then hopefully inspire some questions at the end. And then the last case study I want to share with you, it's around supply chain. because your supply chain does affect your growth as well. If you're not manufacturing the products, or you're not able to supply the service that you offer, then it's going to have a disastrous effect on growth. So if I begin on what we covered last time, we were looking for opportunities specifically for automation. So we took a look at a couple of different areas. How do I reduce time, and can I reduce time within my approval processes? Can I improve my customer journey? What kind of impact did that have on making automation so it's easier on my customers? Then when you're talking more credit-wise, you're looking at increasing that decision accuracy. How can I standardize decisions? Is that a possibility for me? Do I have the use case that can allow that? Then you're talking about optimizing risk by approving the most suitable customers. That's very simple, out of the box. I want to deal with credit-worthy customers. I want to deal with customers that have a lot of opportunity for growth. The focus on the end of the last presentation was just talking about lowering decision time. On average, it takes 25 minutes just to collect the information necessary to make a decision financially. So what we talked about was a little case study of how we can effectively reduce that time, overall reduce cost, and give you a better experience within your company.
And folks, for those of you that are wondering and you didn't catch the previous webinar that we did on that, I just want to interject here real quick. You can always go to creditsafe.com/webinars and get all of our upcoming and previously recorded webinars. So you can just go in there. You can use the tabs at the top to cut down the types of webinars, and you can find Leighton's earlier webinar that talks about all that stuff that he just covered in case you're wanting to see that at any point that works for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Nathan. I'm moving on to the first case study. I thought this one was going to be very important for people to see. It was a brand new company. The pandemic has been amongst us, and security equipment, mask suppliers that were popping up everywhere. PPE equipment has just been a growing industry. Now, the specific company that I spoke to, they were getting frustrated because they couldn't set up accounts quick enough. Every single new account request was going through a manual approval, and that was just delaying getting these new customers on board, and then they were just going to a competitor, and it was just a bad experience for them. They were losing out on those growth opportunities. Now, where they desired to be, what their desired state was to get that process automated completely and get those accounts instantly set up. So we did the analytics. Now, risk, although it might be a priority to some people as a new startup selling PPE equipment, that their risk and their opportunities were, I want to get as many accounts as I can, as quickly as I can, and I want them processed immediately. So when you were looking at what we eventually did for them, we took everyone that had an A credit score. They gave them an immediate $1,500 credit limit, which then pushed back into their ERP system and automatically set that account up. So then B, they were being slightly more conservative. C, even at high risk accounts within a D category, they were still approving them for $250, which isn't breaking the bank. It was limiting their exposure, limiting their risk, but 92% of their accounts now ended up being automatically approved, and 92% of their accounts were being set up automatically for credit. Now, there are some negative aspects to this that we could perhaps discuss, but this was their mission, this was their goal, and this is how we solved that problem for them. That rolls nicely into back to basics. What is the items that you should have in a credit policy? The thing I've got at the top of my list is senior engagement. A credit policy, the sales policy needs to come all the way from the top and be discussed all the way down through the organization. The more that you have engaged throughout the business, the more successful that is going to be. And the two things you need to consider straight away: what are our company priorities? What are our company pitfalls? Do we want to isolate finding new opportunities? Do we want to get better at our priorities? Or do we want to take care of some of these pitfalls? And some of the sections below just cover those aspects. The appetite for risk. The appetite for risk for the PPE equipment company, they were brand new. Their appetite for risk was very high. They wanted to onboard new customers. They wanted to do it quickly, and that perhaps exposed them a little bit more to risk on the back end. How are you going to identify new and existing customers, and how are you going to treat them differently? Definitely something that needs to be considered across your company's priorities and your company's pitfalls. When you're looking at the last couple at the bottom, point of entry, firmographics, understanding your customer base, understanding exactly who is going to come to you, maybe it's your supplier base as well, but understanding where that data needs to be matched and where you need to really keep that information clean so that you can be nice and effective in your delivery.
And this, what you're talking about here, Leighton, is a huge topic. I mean, there's so much that we can say about that, to the point where, folks, we have another webinar coming up. We've got a bunch of an entire series coming up on credit policy. And that is literally one of the webinars, how you can automate your credit policy, how that all works in there, what pieces need to go where and all that. And Leighton will be a part of that. So you can mark that coming up. But just know, if that seemed like a lot of information, or if there seems like, oh my gosh, I have a million questions about that, please feel free to ask them. We're 100% ready to answer them today, but there's also going to be more info coming out in the future. We just can't do everything all at once.
Perfect. Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, very excited to get on with that series. And if anyone's interested in joining, you feel like you've got a fantastic credit policy in place and you feel like there's good benefit from hearing it, please reach out, and hopefully we can have you as part of it as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now I want to concentrate on data elements. Everybody talks about creating this automation, but how do you make it happen? What data elements actually need to be used? Now, the first few, they're fairly easy to recognize, and they're fairly easy to place as part of that process. Credit scores, credit limits. If someone's creditworthy, I want to work with them. If they're not, I don't. But the analytics side on that, which we'll cover in the credit policy side of it, what credit scores achieve what level of automation? If I want to benchmark on a C or above, how am I going to achieve automation? What percentage of these accounts are actually going to be automated? How much time am I going to actually save using these data elements? Established date, very important. I always like to, when you're talking about newly established businesses, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of pitfalls that you're going to have dealing with newly incorporated businesses, perhaps new industries that have popped up as well. Should you be treating those companies differently than how you're treating a traditional customer? And then I think this does exactly what it says on the tin as well. When you're talking about lien, suits, judgments, insolvencies, these are all bread and butter. These are things you can say, well, if somebody's got a $100,000 lien with the IRS, then I want to look at that. I want that coming onto my desk. That may not be an opportunity for automation because it still needs that manual input. And then I've highlighted the bottom section in red, because as a company, you're sat on some of the most valuable data you have to make these decisions and make automation work. Your own internal data, your own internal experiences. Now, the one thing I want to really place in your minds and really give you this inspiration is how do you visualize that as a data element? How can I make this factual? How can I make this part of my credit policy and use it as a basis to make credit decisions? Now, you're talking about internal history. How have they paid you before? That's easy. That's bread and butter. How do you want to interact with different industries? Is something perhaps that can be a higher level discussion in your business and something to really, really consider. Then the bottom two, you've got personal guarantees and collateral. How do you want to interact with individuals, although they might not have a good credit score? They might be newly established. They've got no credit information available. If they're signing personal guarantees, are you still interested in that account? How valuable is that account to your business? Is that account a priority? So the end statement I'll make there, internal data plus your external data allows you to make the best decisions. Now I'm going to move on to a very interesting use case that I recently had. So this company, they've got real estate software, which allows small companies or investors to use this platform to be able to invest in real estate, whether that be as a collective or whether that be on their own. So what was happening, these guys were getting 12,000 companies, individuals coming through their website a month, and their salespeople were overrun with inquiries. There was a lot of time, as it says, being wasted on that process and identifying the large opportunities. So out of 12,000, they were trying to find the needle in the haystack. Now, where they wanted to be, what their desired state was, the salespeople that they had hired that were qualified to work with these companies, they wanted them interacting with these companies quicker, and they wanted to supply them with different content to help their company. So essentially a more concentrated sales funnel. So what we did is we looked at those 12,000 companies. Now we identified, well, they told us there was 200 high value customers. And the strangest part that I found from this was the most accurate way of identifying those larger opportunities was by looking at the credit limit. So we matched all these records to the existing database. And one of the filters that gave us fantastic results, out of the 200, we identified 186 of those clients that were onboarded, looking at $10,000 plus credit limits. Now, what we also did from that, although we identified the customers they set up, we also had a window of 180 other companies that had that $10,000 or higher credit limit on their credit report. Now, these are the ones that they're going to be sending to the salespeople first to provide them with priority. So yes, you don't want to forget about the small customers, but if you want to prioritize your sales efforts, while also, don't forget, these are also matched now to a credit information database so that you can perform those reviews easily and seamlessly in the future as well. And ultimately, the end result here, we drove sales up. We drove the growth of the business up and provided them with a fantastic level of service, which it was a new use case for me. I really enjoyed being part of this project, and hopefully something that you might consider and take a look at as putting in place in your own businesses. And this is the one I didn't want to spend too much time on. When I was practicing this, I felt like I bored myself. So I just want to take a couple of items from here, discuss them in a little bit of detail with you. So we're looking at current state versus desired state. Now, whether you want to look at this as opportunity-based or you want to take a look at this as a pitfall-based, is there something that we're doing badly right now that we want to improve? Or is there something we're doing well right now that we want to do even better? I mean, one of the ones that I will focus on is manual tedious tasks. Now, some of this can be done very easily without using any kind of advanced tools or advanced analytics. If you've got somebody that's pulling credit information manually and you're using software, why not just put credit information inside that software? And once you do the numbers, you've got to look at the ROI, not on, you're going to spend the same or a little bit more with potentially your credit information supplier, but your time and your team are going to spend more time on more important tasks than copying and pasting from one system into the other. From my experience over the last 2 years, this has been a big requirement and a big ask from our customers, not just CreditSafe, but all of our competitors as well have made tremendous efforts to make sure that data is as consumable as possible. And I'm going to lead straight into not communicating now. I was going to do a different one, but I feel like I want to do no communication. I recently did a project where they felt that automation would take away people's job roles, take away people's importance and what they were doing, when in fact, when we went through the project, it had the reverse effect. You know, we're taking away those manual tedious tasks. We're taking away the staring at a credit report for 30 minutes in order to make a decision. And you're actually spending more time communicating with customers and giving them that higher level of experience, or communicating with suppliers, giving them that higher level of experience with your business, overall enhancing growth in the business, enhancing your clients and your suppliers' experience with your company. And that follows on to the last one. Are your staff engaged? Are they not engaged? I can assume if I had to go in every day and copy and paste 500 things and that was my job, I would not be very engaged or very happy. But if I spent my day communicating with companies, enjoying my work and doing things that I felt were productive, overall, staff are going to be more engaged, staff are going to be more happy, and yes, everything's going to be wonderful. And so the last case study, I've talked about supplier relationships a little bit. I wanted to make sure I added that in at the end. We're getting an increased amount of requirements for this and asks from our clients. This is just a simple case study of they were a solar panel manufacturing company. They were ordering their products from out of the country in different parts of the world, and they were not doing any kind of analytics, no financial reviews whatsoever on their supply chain, and they were having issues with their manufacturing plants. companies were becoming insolvent. They were having payment issues where they couldn't even pay their own suppliers in a specific country. Now, where they wanted to be is they wanted to do financial analysis on suppliers, reduce delays in any kind of manufacturing, delay any additional costs within their supply chain. And it's extremely simple. We managed to cover most of this within a week. We looked at their supplier base, we identified, we matched them, and then we supplied that financial analysis to the client, where they could see that, yes, they had companies that were financially struggling. Doesn't mean that you necessarily want to cut them off as a supplier, but it's definitely something that you need to be aware of and have measures in place to counteract. Now, we work with dozens of different supply chain software companies around the world. We integrated it with their chosen supplier. And what they did is they just automatically sent through anyone with a C+ or above international score, got through to the next stage. Now, what that achieved, yes, we found some insolvent companies straight away that they weren't aware of, that they hadn't had an issue with yet. Every supplier is now financially vetted. But rather than what they believed they were going to have to go through hundreds or thousands of suppliers and look at every single one, we made this process very easy, very quick, and very efficient for the client to just be aware of what is going on with all of their suppliers. Perfect. Now, I did
go. Look at you.
When I practiced this, it was a lot longer, and then Nathan told me, Nathan, you've got to cut that back a bit. You're
yep.
me.
Which is great. And we've got some answers to the question that we asked in the beginning. And quite honestly, most of the folks that answered, we had about a third of our audience answer, and they have little to no automation. So definitely, folks, I would say go back and check out the first webinar that Leighton did around this, so you have a really good basis for this. But then hopefully this is stuff that's helpful, and you'll have some questions. Please feel free to start dropping those questions in if you haven't already. I know there's a couple of questions here already. And if you haven't dropped in questions and you do have them, feel free to answer or to ask them rather. But it looks like most of the folks that answered are very low on the automation, if any, especially in their credit processing or anything like that. So, I think this is really timely and relevant for them. But to jump into some of these questions, Leighton, and hopefully we'll get some more that'll come in as well. On average, how much of the credit onboarding process can be automated? I know you had said earlier, you said something about one of the case studies had, I think, about 92% and everything like that. But is that typical? I'm just kind of expounding on this question, but
that's a KPI.
How much can they expect?
That KPI needs to be considered against the credit policy. So that's where we can benchmark and give you those results based on how much risk tolerance you have. Because if you want everybody with a perfect A credit score that's never had a lien, never had a suit, never had a judgment, you're going to be looking at a very low percentage. But the nice thing about what you can do is, you can have your credit policy. I recently looked at a credit policy where it would achieve 0%.
Right.
A certain requirement, but those data analytics can be performed. I would say start simple to begin with. Yeah, maybe you just want to take a look at those perfect credit scores and achieve 10% automation. That might be a fantastic result for your business. But those data analytics can be easily performed. It's not a hard thing to do, and it's not a hard place to get to.
Right, and we can do that. It's based on what you're looking for, and how you're looking for it is what you're going to cut out, so to speak, of that 25 minutes a credit report decisioning. You're able to kind of cut down on that. Okay, great. So next question here: how much of the process is off the shelf, and then how much can be customized for each customer?
So is that involved with the ERP system?
No, this is a separate one.
Okay. So how much can be automated?
No. How much is like just off the shelf, and then how much is customized? So I think what they're asking here is how much is it just, this is what you get, this is how we do it, you can't change it, and how much is specific decisions and specific guidelines and specific policy setups for their company?
The policy, it's just manpower on your own end. You're talking about engaging with the management and making sure that you've got that defined process that everybody agrees upon. Now, most ERP systems and CRM systems have off-the-shelf management tools. It's even a case sometimes where CreditSafe isn't coming in and doing this for you. You likely already have the tools and already pay for the tools that can help you out with this. Now, what CreditSafe can do is just help you achieve those goals and supply you with the analytics so you can essentially get an ROI report of how much time is this going to save me? How much more effective is this going to make my business? Yeah, that does that answer the question, Nathan?
I would assume so, and if not, I'm sure they'll ask again. That's we've got stuff opening up, and we've got plenty of questions in here to keep rolling on. So if it didn't answer your question, please pop on in and do it again. So next question is, how do I actually automate the process? Is this integrated into the ERP system available, or what's going on? Because I want to know, that this can truly be automated and cut down on the work.
Yes, so that all depends on your software capabilities of your own business, which as part of that, I would say, review that you want to do to begin with, it's something that needs to be considered. Sometimes I'm doing projects where they're about to move ERP systems. Do you want to go through all of this work right now when you're just going to have to duplicate all of that work in the future? How much of that process should be automated in your ERP if you don't want to touch it? Do you want just a credit manager or a salesperson? You need to identify the point of entry of where you want that automation to work. Because one of the biggest ones, you've got salespeople that send a request off the credit. A simple layer of automation there is that credit report can already be pulled before it hits credit. So it's all about looking and reviewing your own process, finding and identifying those opportunities, and creating that plan to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've got another question here, and I do want to pause here real quick, folks, because there's something I want to mention. If you have specific questions and you're like, this is really specific to my business, I'm not going to ask it right now or what have you, that's totally fine. We understand that. If you do drop it in here, I will try to get to it. But what we will be doing also on the landing page that you'll be sent to, that'll have the recording and all the facts and figures and all these different things on there, we'll have a way for you to contact Leighton specifically and get a meeting set up with him to kind of review your process already, see what your policy is, see where this automation can help you, those type of things. So that'll all be in there. It won't be a problem. So if you're curious about that, if you want a little bit more in depth or whatever, that'll all be set up. There'll be a link there that you can just automatically get a meeting set up with Leighton, and you can have that done, no problem. So I just want to put that out there before I keep going on with these other questions that we have here. So question here is, and it's kind of a long one, so if I need to repeat it, go ahead and just let me know. What is the process of obtaining a consultation? Well, just told you there. And how does CreditSafe support the automation of existing workflow? Are RPA solutions developed in-house? And could you speak to the overall client engagement and solutioning process? This company specifically uses Salesforce as a CRM and workflow for credit activity.
Yeah.
Go for it.
We like to stay involved in the process as much as possible. Ultimately, the way CreditSafe makes money is by selling you our credit data. But what we've done is made our data as consumable as possible. Right now, we have connectors into Salesforce.com. We actually have 4 different connectors, and there's going to be one released on the App Exchange at the end of June this year. I'm working with the product team on that. It's ready to go. But we've got production packages that are available into Salesforce.com now. If your company is Salesforce savvy and you've got internal developers, all we need to do is deliver the data in there, give you some advice on what models to use. The decision tree capabilities in Salesforce, the workflow management tools in Salesforce are fantastic. And if you're developing that yourselves, then a quick conversation just to give your developers some ideas would be, we can do that at any time.
Right. Yeah. And then we do follow up too, folks. We're going to stay with you through the process. We're going to double check and make sure that, you're happy with it. If things need to be adjusted or whatever, those are follow-up conversations that happen over time. So it's not that we're going to forget about you once this is all set up. We're there to be that partner in getting the solution right for you. So, all right. So we've got a few more questions here. I just want to keep on rocking and rolling through. So this is asked, You mentioned fraud accounts versus no fraud accounts when you were talking about the case studies and current versus desired states. Is there a certain way you're combating this? Say for a new business being onboarded, how would we work on that through this automation?
Yeah, and it's maybe I shouldn't have used the word fraud, but yes, I can dig into that a little bit. But it's what you determine as a fraud account. When you're onboarding that business, are we talking about an individual that's putting in somebody else's information in order to achieve that line of credit? When you're looking at the onboarding automation, then you want a second layer of verification. But that all depends on the KPIs surrounding it. You know, if you're setting up 1,000 accounts a week and you're only getting one fraud account, is that a success or is that still a failure because you're only getting one fraud account? My general advice there with larger organizations is yes, you're still going to get fraud accounts. You're still going to have someone clever enough to trick the system. The idea around here is making sure you've got written policy in place so that you can display that you're doing as much as you can to avoid that. There are additional third-party APIs for ID verification. You can add in extra layers and really go into detail, but then you've got to consider the KPIs of the onboarding time. You've got to consider the customer experience. It's a very interesting question, and would love to ask you some more questions about it.
There you go. Well, if you want to again, if you want to talk some more in depth specifically around your situation, we'll have that link set up for you to talk to Leighton and get a consultation done and just kind of talk through everything and see where this can be of value to you. And then this one is asked, can you show an example of the process for automation? And I know we did that in the previous webinar. There's a lot more, we kind of went in depth with that, but can you just give a quick overview of how the process works?
So yes, you're going to be identifying a timetable to begin with. You're going to look at a timeline. We're going to take a look at your resources. What are we actually looking to achieve? I mean, what work is needed by CreditSafe? What work is needed by your organization? Do you have the resources? Do you have the manpower to do it? When can we get this done by? Start looking at delivery timetables. We'll make that timeline. We'll put all of the delivery and action points. And then what we do is we slowly work down through that process. However complicated you want it to be, it can be very simple. However much priority you've got on it is how quickly it's going to take. But the first thing you need to do is really take a look at how that's going to be delivered, what the current resources are, what timetables can you commit to, what timetables can CreditSafe or your software supplier commit to. And then you'll get a really strong understanding. I'd say if you're just looking to start that process today, we need to really map that out to give you a defined answer.
Yeah, there's so many variables that come into that, folks, that, like Leighton's been talking about, do you even have a credit policy? We find, even though you're credit professionals and stuff like that, there's a lot of companies out there without a written credit policy. So there's nothing down on paper. And sometimes it takes, a while for them to create that so that we can even look at what automation can be done after the fact, once we actually have a policy to work with. So there's everything from that to what Leighton was talking about just in the previous question of how many layers of checks do you want and verifications do you need and all of that. So there's a lot of things that fall into that. And I would say if you want an overview of that, definitely go back and check out that first webinar that we did around automation. It'll really help you out. And then also make sure to pay attention to the stuff that we're talking about at the end of the summer for the credit policy series that we'll be doing there. So, Leighton, we're starting to run towards time. So there's one question that I always ask everybody, and I asked you on the last time you were here and everything like that. What's the kind of the big one or two things that you can give as advice to folks that are either one looking to start, as a lot of our folks said, they're not involved in automation right now. They don't have the automation. So what's something you could tell them that'll really help them as they go forward? And then the second is for folks that want to refine their automation or get it better, those best practices that they can be doing. Kind of those two sides, because we have kind of both in the audience. What's those best practices or those best advice that you could give them?
But my suggestions is to keep an open mind and perhaps be creative with what you're trying to achieve. The projects that I get most excited about is when they've come up with this fantastic idea about how they can increase sales, how they can increase growth, how they can make a relationship better. There needs to be a positive, creative. It gets people excited about it. You'll get people excited in your company about it. And then if the end result is creating more revenue, anyone more senior than you is going to get excited about that as well. So that's my thing about it. But talk to us. We can give you these little ideas. I mean, just looking at who's got a perfect credit score, and can we just stop people spending an hour at a time reviewing these cases? Is that just a step one? This is much simpler than a lot of people think, and you've got a plethora of resources available to you to help make this happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please reach out to us, folks. And we're happy to help walk you through the process, help you with this, and give you, and like Leighton said, he even has come up against customers where, or not up against, but up against policies where there was no way to automate it. There was just the way the policy was set up, hey, there's just not going to be any way to help. And we're going to be honest about that and just tell you what we think we can do and how much it can actually help you and give you, like he's been referencing, those ROI setups and everything like that. So Leighton, thank you so much for being with us. It's always fun. And I'm looking forward to things opening back up and meeting from, somewhere in between Arizona and Virginia and getting a chance to hang out again. And hopefully seeing some of you folks that join us for these webinars. We will be taking a couple of week break, actually almost close to a month, folks. So there's a lot going on here, a lot happening. And so we're going to take a bit of a break from the webinars. We will be back on June 15th and 17th on what we're calling Bankruptcy Week. Probably not the nicest term, but we are going to start talking bankruptcy, talking both the bankruptcy domino effect, how it affects your business, and then also the trends that we're seeing and the changes we're seeing in bankruptcy this year. So you want to join us for that. And as always, you can go to creditsafe.com/webinars to register for any of our upcoming webinars or see any of our previous webinars, like the automation one that Leighton did before on that topic. And you can see any of those anytime, again, at creditsafe.com/webinars. It's always great having you. We'll see you guys in a month. Thanks so much for being with us. Thank you, Leighton, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.